Welcome to Love and Life Elevated. My name is James.
And I'm Debra.
And it is so good to have you join us today. And we've got an interesting topic today. And it hits on so many levels for me personally. And I'm not going to be surprised at all if every one of you goes, wow, that's absolutely what I'm feeling in my life right now.
Well, you brought up the topic to me today, and the topic is relationship recession, or reclaiming our relational health, relational wealth. And at first, I was thinking, yawn, or like, oh, more of this again. But honestly, it's different, and it really hits. So hopefully, you'll get something out of this topic because there's a lot there. It's actually something people are searching for online right now, or questioning, like, what's going on with our relationships. I used to feel so fulfilled with my friendships or my intimate relationships, and it's kind of like really on the downhill. So we want to talk about what's going on and what we can do about it.
Yeah, because we, like you, are very determined to make sure that our life continues to be moving in a direction where, as we gain wisdom and we gain age, we also are gaining community. And it's against the trends right now, because it seems like as we are gaining in age and wisdom, we're not taking that same wisdom into our friendships and our relationships. And this is where the loneliness epidemic has been well researched. We've talked about that. This is a different variation with that, because this is more looking at existing relationships and as to whether or not you treat them with a level of love, you're investing in them, and what are some of the easier things, but also some of the more powerful things that we can be doing to really make those investments really, really be felt and help us to gain that much more of a quality of life.
It's really interesting that you're talking about it in those terms, because I hadn't put it together. Like, everyone, we have this fear and freak out, like, oh my gosh, are we headed toward another recession? What's going on with the economy? Where should we be investing, like, our finances and our money? But so few of us think about how are we investing our time and energy in relationships, which honestly, like, of course we need money to live and to survive, but it's truly our connection, the human connection of relationships, that's going to keep us living longer, happier lives.
That is such an important point. I think for many of us who are feeling the weight of the world, and that is a giant bucket, we could put so many things in there. How much do we really see how our relationships help to fortify our nervous system, help us to gain greater mental wealth and health and hopefulness? And also, one of the greatest things that friendships and relationships do, they give us physiological and psychological resilience. And what happens a lot when we're stressed or we're feeling all the weight of the world, we tend to pull back and we divest in those relationships, because we feel like, oh my gosh, I have to really I got to hunker down, I got to save my energy, I got to do all these things. And I get that can be helpful at sometimes, but not in such a way that we close down all these relationships, because when we start doing that, our entire being suffers.
You know, so when you brought up this topic, and of course we always take a lot of notes on it, but it's a little heartbreaking, but I just want to share the results from the survey from just a few years ago, when it said that over the last 3 decades, that the number of close friendships that people report having has plummeted, with a significant percentage of people reporting that they have no best friend at all. And, you know, that's nothing to, like, no shame if you don't have that quote unquote best friend. I think we all wish, like, oh, I just wish I had that one friend. It's okay. The point of that survey, and what that survey is actually telling us, is that we are just letting go of those in-person, high-touch relationships, because we are kind of tethered to the digital connection, and it's really a false sense of friendship that's leaving us feeling more lonely than ever, and that's just sad.
It is, and I think one of the things that we want to do is not create a lot of sadness and heaviness, because there's so many things that we want to talk about today that are going to really hopefully buoy up your hopefulness and your sense of energy around this. One of the things that you had shared with me earlier, honey, and I think this is really great. It goes back to someone we've talked about many times. I love her work. Her name is Barbara Fredrickson. She talks about these things called micro moments of heart resonance. First and foremost, you have to understand the data on this, her research is powerful, and it speaks to the fact that so often in times we say, oh, I don't have the time. Right? We quantify the relationship with whether or not I have an hour or two or an entire weekend to dedicate, or I can even stop in a aisle at a grocery store. Do I have time to do that? Well, here's what's great about this research. It tells us in as little as 20, 30, maybe 40 seconds of an interaction with someone that you know or even someone you don't know, just a friendly exchange of energy literally can change our physiology, carry us for hours thereafter, literally start to change our chemistry. So I love to call these drive-by experiences. When you are literally moving by somebody, a smile, a hello, notice something about that person that you can share with them. That is helping your physiology. It's helping their physiology. And the emotional, spiritual part of this is deep and absolutely lasting.
And you're talking about in-person micro moments of connection. It can actually lower our stress levels. And I was asking you when we were talking about Barbara Fredrickson, I was like, don't we have a few of her books? You start naming off the books, and then you handed me one. And here's what I love. I started flipping through it, and I saw his little underlines. So can I pull those out?
I haven't read that book in years.
I know, well, I dog-eared. So actually what was so great, you had underlined, if you're watching online, you can kind of see where he's underlined, a few areas that really relate to these micro moments of connection. And here's what you underlined. The love you crave lies within momentary experiences of connection. Momentary experiences. Each, in fact, grows stronger as your moments of love accumulate. And I want to go back to what you were talking about with the examples you were giving. One thing that James does that is so cool, I think, and so beautiful is when we live not too rural, but kind of rural, and our house sits at the end of a road that has 6 houses total. We're at the very end. So our kitchen window faces out to the driveway, and when we are getting a delivery at the house, you can see when our postmaster is driving up, and if James is upstairs and sees him, he runs out to the deck, and you personally greet him, you look him in the eyes, you ask him how he's doing, you ask him about his family, and we've done that for years. Even in our last house, we made a great connection with the UPS driver. We knew so much about his family, and that's what it is, right?
It is that.
And that is so meaningful, and then he walks away feeling more connected. You walk back in the house feeling more connected, and you learn something new.
I think, I'm so glad, it makes me feel a little funny that you shared that in a good way. And I think the thing I love about that, it hopefully gives you permission to go, gosh, how many times do I overlook this micro moment opportunity? And we all do it, right? This is something that we get used to a certain thing. We start to not see faces anymore. This is a time where a lot of things that are happening can get us to pull back or even dehumanize and not see humans anymore, and have the opportunity to invite ourselves into these kinds of experiences. And it's so wonderful to know that the type of data that's coming in on this gives everyone, no matter how you're living and where you're living, an opportunity to really see, I can make this type of investment. I can overcome this recession with these micro moment opportunities.
And just to reiterate, so this book is called Love 2.0, Barbara Fredrickson. I want to read another area that you highlighted. When you learn to prioritize love and other positive emotions, we found you actually get more of them. And then you made notes in here, and you said increased intention leads to increased experience. So why do you think you made that note right there? I
think it's really about how do you get up and go into your relationships each day. And the more that you go in with the intention, I'm going to meet the UPS person, I'm going to talk to someone at the checkout. When I get a coffee, I'm going to make sure I take the extra step. When you set that intention, you are going to deepen the way the physiological experience empowers you, changes you, grows you. And that's basically what I think we have here, is that we have an opportunity to look at this recession as an invitation, opportunity to bring it an invitation. And this idea of actually going into each and every day saying, I'm going to look for an opportunity to pollinate someone. I'm going to look for an opportunity to make eye contact, say something, smile. This does matter. And it's a beautiful reciprocity. There's an exchange of energy just by you being the one who's going to be the heroic initiator.
Awesome. All right, so back to the notes. Let's go on to the next the next thing that we can do, and that is
Excuse me.
strengthening the weak ties. And we had a little conversation before we press go today, and it's about how weak ties are those acquaintances or those close friends that we kind of just let wither away. You know, we're interested in each other. We appreciate each other. We see them in our daily routines, but we just let those bonds kind of fade away. We don't take action to strengthen the bonds. And it really, what happens when we make that effort, it strengthens our social muscles.
Yeah.
Right? It feeds that human connection need, that basic belonging need. Why do you think we just let them fade away? Is it like we're too busy? We don't have time? We don't think they're interested?
I think what's happened is that the way that the life that we're all leading, most all of us are leading, we start getting really, really stingy about what's convenient. I think what happens, this is something, I don't have data on this, but I'm just going to go ahead and share something that just hit me. We want things that are efficient, quick. Computers and phones and all the things that are happening with tech, it's boom, boom. It happens immediately. You know, when you are thinking about, oh, wow, I've got to go ahead and make a phone call. I've got to set something up. All of a sudden you feel like there's a lot of time invested here. And this seems like I got to really commit above and beyond. Well, that is exactly what is being asked of you, because when you make this kind of investment, you don't treat it as something that, you know, isn't worthy of my time, isn't worthy of my energy. They will fade because they take work and it takes things. I mean, we can look at our marriage, sweetheart. When we are in a place where we're both really busy doing our individual stuff, the thing that I believe has helped us no matter what is our morning walk together and the check-ins that we make throughout the day, even if they're just me walking by your office and going, hey, sweetie, how are you? Hope that meeting went well, whatever. And just, it's those kinds of, or coming in, just rubbing your back for 20 or 30 seconds, looking you in the eye and saying, I love you, and then I go back to my office. Doing those things matter.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, it's more than just sending a text. Sending a text is better than nothing, right? It is reaching out. But, can you, when you send a text, how about saying, is there a time we can FaceTime? This is a person doesn't live near you. And if they do live near you, hey, can we set a time to take a walk? Even if you can only spare 20 minutes, a half an hour, like that face-to-face connection, it just, it really does a lot for nurturing, bringing down our stress levels and nurturing our heart and our sense of connection.
Yeah, and I think that leads perfectly into the next point, sweetheart, about positive shared, prioritize shared physical experience.
And activity.
So going for walks with people, research shows is one of the more powerful things you can do as an investment to overcome the recession of friendships. And you think about sometimes how wonderful it is to be shoulder to shoulder with someone versus face to face. They're both wonderful, but for some people, you know, the shoulder to shoulder is just more comfortable. The energy is open-minded because you're facing out, you're going through going through the park or something, whatever the case may be. But creating times for walks, there has been so much research on what it means to be outdoors, what happens to your neurochemistry and your physiology. But when you're with somebody and really kind of strengthening weak ties, or with your partner, your bestie, this is one of those force multipliers that absolutely impacts at the deepest of levels. And there's nothing quite like coming back from time with someone after a walk, and all of a sudden ideation comes up and creativity and just all these things that help us to overcome some of the present day darkness, help us to really, really rise above some of the heaviness of the days. And we really have to ask ourselves, why wouldn't I invest in this? And if you're really in a dark place and you're really feeling lonely, this is going to be heroic for you. This is going to take a lot from you because you're risking being rejected. You're risking saying, hey, I'm lonely. I need some connection. That kind of vulnerability, that's aliveness.
Well, we've talked often here about that idea of collective effervescence. So for example, I can give you several scenarios. One is just signing up for yoga class. You may be new to an area. You may have never done yoga. But it's that sense of, you're all part of a greater movement, right? And that is what you're talking about. That's when it releases endorphins. You're moving through something physical together. It creates that sense of unity. And to use your example of like, yeah, it may be vulnerable to ask someone to go for a walk, but when I was recently out of town and you took our dogs for a regular morning walk without me, but you ran into an acquaintance up there. And I talked to you afterwards. You're like, yeah, I ended up talking to him for an hour in the park. And then you're riding that high of the endorphin just from that connection. And I loved that. I love hearing that. And we have that with several people, whether it's our weekend walk and we only know each other from the trail, but we connect over the dogs or whatever life. And it then is that sense of collective effervescence and belongingness, endorphins are rising and all, it's just so cool.
It is so cool. And I think it speaks to the next point about analog time. And I love this because when you're on a walk, it's a whole lot easier to not have your telephone. It's a whole lot easier not to be looking at a screen, right?
So you're talking about analog versus digital.
Exactly. So the analog is going old school, old fashioned, face to face, outside with no technology.
Not having the phone at the dinner table in the restaurant. I mean, man, I'm so judgmental because so many times we're out, we'll see couples
whose faces are buried in their
They're
phones.
not talking the entire time. Sorry if that's you, but it's hard and it's sad.
Yeah. So this idea of analog time, not only does it really help the chemistry and the connection happen, but research tells us when there's a phone in the area or you can see a phone when you're with somebody, we immediately feel undervalued. We immediately feel a sense of ourself being diminished. It's physiological. It's actually research in saying that if a phone is around when we're with somebody, we immediately are going to feel less than.
Yeah, and I'm going to put my guard up a little bit.
Sure. Because you're waiting.
I'm not important. I'm not enough.
Yeah,
my not enoughness radar.
Because you literally are waiting for a ping of a text coming in, something to happen, or
it's more important than me.
Right,
So, yeah.
or just the fact that we all have these reflexes. I say we all do. Most of us have a reflex. When our phone is on us, we can't help but glance at it because it's just become myelin. It's a complete reflex that we have literally created automaticity with. So these are simple.
It's like and the note I took is that when we commit to being fully present, we allow our nervous systems to settle and to truly see one another. And then that is the only way to really achieve emotional intimacy and safety.
And I think that's it right there.
Mm-hmm.
If we could kind of bring this all full circle, I think what this speaks to, this relationship recession, it is speaking directly to the fact that safety. We know in the greater world right now, a lot of us are feeling unsafe. Our nervous systems are dysregulated, our cortisol levels are up, our amygdalas are overactive. We feel fear, we're looking for safety, and what happens a lot, we retreat even further, we get within ourselves and we say, well, I'm just really comfortable by myself. Well, that kind of comfort can be wonderful at times, but it's not good all the time. We need to really, push up against those edges and utilize these practices because I think that idea of nervous system regulation and the creation of safety is how this really wants to land for you. I'm hoping that you walk away and go, wow, I've got some weak ties, and wouldn't it be amazing to actually be open enough to ask someone to go for a walk based on this? And isn't it interesting that I could go into each and every day setting an intention for a micro moment heart resonance experience? Because if I go out in the world, I'm going to see a human being, most likely. What can I do to make that experience rich, deep, transformational?
And the last one that I have is a really interesting one. It's about practicing proactive vulnerability. And I just want to give a few tips here. That doesn't mean that on a first date or lunch with a new friend that you're oversharing something that may be uncomfortable. This is like, being vulnerable and allowing your true self to be seen, because that's what deepens relationships. But it's not saying something that is going to take another person, put another person on guard and be like, whoa, that's a lot for like the first 20 minutes of spending time together.
Yeah.
So it's allowing yourself to be seen and sharing something personal and vulnerable and allow it to be messy, but having enough self-awareness and emotional intelligence that you don't get too sloppy too fast.
Yeah. Yeah,
right?
we have to earn some sloppiness, and we got to get a couple more investments in and to overcome the recession.
Yeah.
Before we come in real hard and heavy.
Yeah. So basically, the take-home message here is that relationships are good for basically every aspect of our life, for our cognition, for our heart health, for our longevity, and that we're not meant to live life in isolation. And it takes effort. You can't just expect that someone's going to come to you, because we kind of all have fallen into this comfort in front of our screens and like, oh, well, I'm part of my high school Facebook group, or, I'm texting 10 people every day. But letting go of the digital, moving into the analog, making those micro connections, being vulnerable, and letting your guard down so that your nervous system can join along and just feel connected, collective effervescence. This is what's going to get us out of the relationship recessions.
And yes, I know it may be kind of self-evident, really obvious. The reason why we're doing Love and Life, and we do our best to stay committed to this experience, we want this. And we know there's a screen between us. We know that this is all tech. But we also hope that we're sharing ideas that give you a sense of hope, maybe kind of kick you in the butt a little bit, makes you feel like, I got to get back into living. I got to not be afraid. I have to make an investment to overcome this recession. This is what this has always been about for Deb and I. And the more that we ever give ourselves permission to make these stands in our life, there's so few things in life that you can say, wow, this isn't just about me. Because once we step into this arena, and once we put the energy into it, the person who's on the other side of this energetic is getting the same benefit. And that is such a beautiful thing to understand. This is a reciprocity of awesome that's happening every time that we step in and give ourselves to this experience.
Thank you.
Yeah, yes. Thank you, honey.
So that's it for today. Thank you for being here with us. Please send your questions. If anything comes up for you, please share that with us. We just really appreciate you being here, listening, sending us your feedback. We really love you and value your presence.
Thank you for your friendship. Thank you for this community, sending lots of love. We'll see you next week. Bye for now.